Okay, so we are live, and today I'm talking about a pretty important topic, which is ranking on ChatGPT search results. So, this is a topic that has come up at our agency very often, and it is how do I get my business to show up more in the AI search results? And it's definitely a topic that a lot of people are talking about, and they're curious on how the algorithm works, if they should optimize their website, what things they should be focusing on, how to focus on citations, etc. So I wanted to break this video up into several key topics. Probably the first one is why you should be paying attention to this now instead of waiting for later. Things like how to run a ChatGPT visibility report to see how much you show up in the GPT results. Why I'm specifically focusing on ChatGPT because that AI model has had explosive growth. So just like SEOs were focusing on Google, now SEOs are going to focus on ChatGPT and other algorithms as well. And I'm going to really just go through a deep dive of how we're doing this for our customers at Develomark, my marketing agency, and show you technically how we're doing this. Then I want to talk about the baseline assessment, how to actually see which keywords you're showing up for inside of ChatGPT, and using technology to be able to simulate that at scale so you don't have to do it manually. How the Google business profile plays into this and how to add some AI automations to your Google business profile so that it will appear active and so that people will actually start to see that the business profile is active and AIs are going to recommend that. And then talk about your content strategy a little bit and how we're using AI to create dozens of pages at a time. So we have unique URLs for each of the types of keyword phrases that people are going to type into the search results and find our brand. And then we're going to talk about structured data, authority and mentions, rankings in AI, and how to measure this stuff long term. But before I begin, you might have noticed that I put the video title as a moving company because that's what I'm going to be showing you here today. I've got several tabs open on my screen, but let's go ahead and get into it. And I'll kind of show you why I'm paying attention to this right now. So as you can see on my screen, this is a keyword trend for the term AI SEO. As you can see, the keyword is going up. And so more people are searching for AI SEO now more than ever. There was a big spike when ChatGPT happened, as you can see around that 2023, 2024 time. And then it was a big drop. But after that, you can see that that amount of people that were searching for that term started to grow pretty dramatically over the long term. So this is definitely something that you're probably seeing your customers or you're asking yourself, how can I get myself to show up more inside of the ChatGPT results? And so that leads me to a ChatGPT visibility report. And so if you're not familiar with one of these reports, basically very similar to position tracking, which is a very common SEO metric that we used to look at. When you type in a keyword, on average, how much am I showing up for that keyword phrase? Now we use things like visibility reports. And so all visibility reports do is they search the internet for 50, 100, 200, 250 keywords at a time inside of a given LLM, inside of something like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. And then it shows you on average how many times you're showing up in the results for those keyword phrases. And so this is very different from position tracking because position tracking would search the search engine. It would find on average how much you are or where you're showing up. This instead is showing you how visible you are for these kinds of terms. So if you look at one of these reports, and by the way, there's a bunch of companies that offer this as a toolkit. One of the most popular ones that came out recently was Ubersuggest, Neil Patel's tool that now offers AI visibility as well. So you can go try it out there. There's more expensive tools like Profound that allow you to do this. Personally, I think it's way too expensive. I'd recommend using a tool like Ubersuggest or SplashDash to do this. And you can see a lot of these SEO companies are actually focusing on, or I'm sorry, these SEO softwares, they're actually focusing on allowing you to see how well you're showing up in the AI search results, which is interesting because we've always thought in the terms of clicks. Now we're thinking in terms of visibility. And so, as I mentioned to you before, you really need to be where this trend is. If you're selling digital services, people are looking for SEO companies that are focused on getting you to show up in the search results. And so, when you look at one of the visibility reports, back over to this, what it's really doing and what they're really doing is they're searching for a significant amount of prompts on your behalf to see if your brand shows up when that prompt is mentioned. So to show you one of the examples, this question was, what are some reputable moving companies in Connecticut? Who can help me move my office? I need a moving company in Connecticut that handled last minute moves. What are the best rated moving companies, etc. And then what the softwares are doing is they're providing you with a response. And if the company is mentioned in those results, as you can see, it gives you a positive visibility. If the company is not mentioned, it will give you a negative visibility and it will lower the score. And so these scores are really good for you to see because when you're going into a conversation with the business, whether it's sales or you're doing accounts management or this is for your own business, you may want to know how well that business is showing up in the search results. And a lot of software companies have not figured out the best way of actually approaching this other than doing a spray and pray approach, which is what you can see is going on here with a lot of the different tools. And so, ideally, in an ideal situation, you would want to run a visibility test with 25 to 250 prompts to get a general consensus of how visible that brand is in the results. And what you're really looking for here are the positive mentions, of course. And those positive mentions will showcase to you how often the business is being mentioned. But then you're also looking to see which competitors are being mentioned the most in that area and the citations, which we're going to talk a lot about. Citations in the era of SEO or AI SEO, I should call it, are just as important as the website itself. In fact, a lot of these search results of us doing our tests with thousands of queries in ChatGPT are showing us that in each industry, in each category, there are different citations that you absolutely need to focus on if you want to get any chance of ranking in those search results. So, in a lot of the tools, they'll give you the sentiment that looks something similar like this. And if you look at the sentiment of where you're not being mentioned, you can start to figure out what you need to optimize the website for or your other citations for to get mentioned in the ChatGPT search results. So I highly recommend you do some visibility tracking. And keep in mind, you don't need any technology to do this. If you want to do this manually, you can physically go into GPT or place a large API request through the platforms and get this data back in bulk. You can do it that way. If you want something visible and really nice looking like this, you can use one of the tools that I mentioned. But what I really wanted for you to understand is that critical things are understanding where the client is showing up. Because if you're showing up to a sales meeting, if you're showing up to a sales presentation and you are going in and you don't know where that client's visibly showing up, you're basically guessing. And if you are guessing, you need to understand the trend that's going on right now is that if you can show a customer where they're showing up and where their opportunity is, you're going to get a sale. Because when I started doing SEO, one of my favorite activities to do was I would ask the business owners in the room, which one of you guys used Google in the last 24 hours? Everyone would raise their hand, right? And then I would say, well, how many of you do you think your customers are using Google? And they would all raise their hand. And then I would ask them, what do you think it would be worth to your business if every time someone searched for someone like you were at the top? And of course, to them, it was very valuable. Now, of course, it was the ones who could do the work and put their money where their mouth is. But nowadays, I ask another question, and that is, how many of you have used ChatGPT in the last 24 hours? I'm sure anybody watching this video right now probably has ChatGPT opened up in a window. So the largest opportunity right now to generate awareness for a business or a brand is through the LLMs. So that's really what I want to talk about. So now that you kind of understand the visibility scores and things along those lines, let's talk about the Google Business Profile for just a second. And so a lot of the times when we're ranking inside of the search results, as I mentioned, ChatGPT is going to pick up a lot of different things that you see. But one of the main things here is if you look at this result, and one of the queries that I showed you in the AI visibility report was best moving companies in a city. As you can see in the results, they're not even mentioning the website. And in fact, what they're mentioning here is a citation. Now, in an AI visibility report, you would clearly see that out of 100 or 250 prompts that you tested, this citation is showing up the most. Most of these citations, however, businesses tend to ignore. They think they're scams, they think they're ripoffs. In fact, today I had a meeting with a prospect, and she literally looked at me in the eye and she said, Better Business Bureau is a scam. And I said, well, while you think that, and I understand why you think that, and there's a very good reason why people think that, the reality is we're not doing it because of our perception of Better Business Bureau. We're doing it because the AI visibility report says if you're searching for a tree company in this area, Better Business Bureau is one of the top cited mentions for a lot of these prompts. And so we really want to dive deep into that by optimizing it as much as possible. So these third-party citations are actually being mentioned more than the websites in a lot of the prompts that we're seeing. And so that allows us to make a smart recommendation to the client to actually get listed on this listing. Of course, not every listing, because they wouldn't be able to afford that. That would be way out of their budget. But a smart AI SEO going into this new decade of marketing is thinking about which citations in my local marketplace matter the most and are being mentioned across hundreds of different prompt samples. And in this case, it was CT Insider for our client. As you can see, most of the actual results that are being cited here are actually from that listing. So they have a page on their website called the 5 best moving companies near Hartford, Connecticut. And of course, instead of trying to fight this deal, what we have done is we have optimized their website to be at the top of the search results here. Now, look, the client pays a pretty penny for this listing. It's roughly about $300 a month. And so that's $300 that could be going towards Google ads. That's $300 that could be going towards Facebook ads, Yelp ads. It could be really going towards anything. But part of our new LLM service at our agency, which I encourage you to do as well, even if you're a business, do it for your own business, start budgeting towards where these citations are popularly mentioned. Because as you can see, because we're a paid result, we're at the top, ChatGPT is actually going to show you the results that are towards the top of this listing. And that's really important to note because by being a sponsor, by being at the top of these results, the LLMs may not know a difference. It's scanning this page through the form of Markdown or JSON or XML. It's scanning this information and listing it top to bottom. So as you can see, when we optimize this, we are putting as much effort as we can by not only paying for the listing, embedding a video, and sending links to all of their different properties on the internet to make sure that the clients we're promoting on here, A, potentially get a few clicks from this result, but B, they actually get some good momentum from it as well. Now, the funny part about this is if I showed you the results, if I showed you the clicks that they get from this listing, it's hysterical. Pre ChatGPT, no one would probably want to pay for something along these lines that doesn't get a lot of traction. But now it's a great way for us to position them for LLM marketing to get them higher visibility scores and to make sure that they're more visible when we send them reporting because we're hearing on a daily basis clients are finding me through ChatGPT. So that's one really powerful way that we're doing it right now. And the same thing goes with a listing like the Better Business Bureau. And I want to talk about this a little bit too, because the reviews are such a critical component on these citations. But I want to tell you about the strategy around that because a lot of the times we go into businesses and we say, well, you need to get good reviews. Well, obviously, are you going to tell me anything that's not obvious? Of course, they need to get more reviews. But I want to teach you a methodical way to go about this. So we now know that you can run a visibility report. You can see where you're showing up and where you're not showing up. You can see which competitors are showing up most often and which citations are showing up most critically in your area. Then we reach out to those citations. We pay to sponsor those listings. We provide them with media, we provide them with text, we provide them with video to make sure the citation is as optimized as possible so that when somebody searches in the LLM, we're going to show up because of that citation's optimization. So a typical Better Business Bureau profile or a typical citation optimization is always as mediocre as it can get. And there's a lot of tools out there that you can use to optimize this to make sure that your bases are covered. One of them that I like using is called Yext. If you're in digital marketing, you're probably very aware of this service. And what it does is it allows you to put your business information in once and syndicates it across the web. And you can continuously optimize, continuously add videos, continuously add structured data to one place. And it does it for your brand entirely everywhere. Yext has been a cornerstone of our LLM strategy, specifically because at Develomark, our branding agency, we'll go to a client on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis. We'll take new photos, we'll record new videos, we'll upload them on their YouTube channel, we'll embed them directly on their website, we'll optimize all of those different things on Yext so it's across all of their listings. So when a user does make a search in an LLM, we're getting really positive results that the client is confident we got their back. Because they're searching in ChatGPT and they're curious. They're going, I wonder if my agency is helping me with this. I wonder if my agency is considering if I should use ChatGPT or not. So they're looking at this stuff, right? And so when we go to do more marketing on different citations like this, we are not just optimizing this listing just to get a check. We are optimizing it to make sure it is as optimized as possible. Paying for that citation, adding the photos and videos, using Yext so we don't have to manage 72 or something along those lines, and making sure that we're actively getting more footage, more photos, and more information from our client so that when ChatGPT analyzes this information, there is as much information as possible listed on there. And so the citations are important. And one of the most important citations is the actual Google business profile. So a lot of our clients, when we get Google business profile access, one of the main things that we'll do is we will always make sure that the client is actively generating reviews, but they're also responding to their reviews professionally. And one of the workflows that I'm going to talk about on tonight's video is using Zapier to automate a lot of this AI stuff for you, because ChatGPT loves using context to respond to things. So I'm going to show you a couple of unique ways that we're using GPT to make sure that we get as much content up on the website that's accurate and creates a URL, and that URL is targeting a keyword. But then little things too, like automating review responses directly on the client's listing. So if you look at their listing, they have 1,581 reviews. And of course, that's helping their LLM results. But as an agency, I don't really have much say in that. That's really a cultural things that businesses will build to do that. So that's not really a service I can give them. What I can give them is automatic review responses on their listing. Generally speaking, when you look at reviews and you look at businesses that have Google business profiles, a lot of them don't respond to any of their reviews. And ChatGPT and LLMs are looking for activity when it comes to the business. And so is Google for traditional SEO. They're looking at that stuff. And so when we create any sort of listing or when we do anything for a client, we're always thinking about how can we utilize Zapier to actually automate a lot of these things to make their life easier, but also to help us scale. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to share with you two wonderful ways that you can use Zapier or Make or whatever other tool that you're using, a task automation software, to help you with the LLM optimization. The first one is very simple. When the customer gets a new review, whether it's Google Business Profile, whether it's Yelp, whatever Zapier can connect to, use ChatGPT's OpenAI's ChatGPT, I'm sorry, to take that review, write a response, whether it's positive or negative, delay that for about an hour, just because we don't want to overwhelm Google Business Profile with automations. You might get suspended that way, and then create a reply to the actual Google Business Profile. And what this allows the business to do is it allows them to focus on generating new reviews while understanding everything else is taken care of through automation. So when they're getting new reviews, they're also getting a response automatically in their tone of voice because of their ChatGPT profile. So that's a really cool way to do that. Now, when you go to do this, you're going to see that Zapier is going to collect exactly what that review is saying. And then you can see right here, it's going to take the review name. It's going to give the comment that they wrote and the review rating. We'll use the GPT model of our choice. And then the assistant will basically say something along these lines. You're just telling the assistant that it's CT moving and storage in this case, which is the client, and write a review. So that's the exact template that we're using, and it works really well. And it's a great little value add that you can do to add automation to your client's everyday life. And I'm going to show you a couple of more automation rules that you can use to improve your LLM SEO so you can get higher ChatGPT visibility scores. So this is a really great way of doing it up front. The next way is actually on the website side. So one of the big things for us, as you guys know, is search engine optimization, and specifically now with AI SEO. And a huge thing is the service area pages of a service-based business. I'm sure if you've done this for customers or if you're doing this for your own business, you've thought about how can I create more pages at scale so that when somebody types in a niche specific keyword, I'm going to show up in the search results for that. And that's exactly what we're using Zapier for. It's really unique. So take a look at these URLs that you see here. You see a bunch of URLs for a bunch of different areas in the state of Connecticut. If you go to a different website, I'll show you another website we're doing this for. It's called Nepi. This is another website that we are getting wonderful LLM results directly through the search results. And if you go to the sitemap of this website, you'll see that it's a one-page website. So we've been making one-page websites. But behind the scene, if you go to their actual sitemap, you'll see that there's a bunch of towns that they're ranking for that are different service areas. And so what we do is we'll create a template for the page, as you can see, targeting those SEO-specific keywords. And from there, we'll have AI input all of the content based on that customer's brand, including the FAQ content. And this is all done through Zapier. And the way that works is we're using Duda as the content management system. We're using Airtable, which is like a spreadsheet software. And then ChatGPT is writing the content in all of the cells, and then that is talking to the actual Duda website content management system. This is highly effective because if I were to go to the Google search results and type in insulation contractors this is Westport CT, you'll see that when I do this, in the search results, we will have our client showing up automatically. But then, of course, this is happening through a bunch of different towns around the area too. Now, of course, this has to be something that is also done inside of ChatGPT. So if I were to load up GPT and ask that same question, different algorithms here, and so hopefully it shows up. But you can see the premises here is creating a lot of URLs with similar content, and that's going to allow you to rank well for those different types of areas. So you can see the client is mentioned here inside of the GPT results. And what that's going to allow me to do is that's going to allow me to run higher visibility scores, see where my gap is. And these kinds of pages should help you get higher visibility scores, which is going to ultimately lead to your customer generating more revenue, which is ultimately what you're being paid for. So I want to share something really quick that this customer specifically sent me. And I'm on a new computer, so I have to pull it up really quick. But basically, we've been getting, for the first time in history of our business, we've been getting a lot of customers sharing feedback with us that they're getting a lot of customers who are contacting them directly through ChatGPT. So this is what he said, which is really interesting. So he said, "Did you hear we got to hit off AI advertising? Keep in mind, the proposal here was 215K, but they're doing the job for 85K. Think about the impact of that, right? Just showing up in ChatGPT resulted in an $85,000 contract for this business. That is significant. And so the higher we can get the AI visibility score, the more money the brand is going to make. That is the future of digital marketing services. And so if you want to position your agency the right way or your business the right way, I would highly recommend utilizing LLM SEO. Now, if you take a look at something like this, a lot of businesses are getting a lot of contact form submissions directly on their website. And if you've watched my videos in the past, you've probably learned that I'm a huge advocate of looking at the data that your customer is getting and then making recommendations using that data. So, for example, with this contact form submissions, we may want to add a storage calculator directly on their website. That would be the insight that we can add here. If one person is asking this question, there's likely going to be a lot more people in the future asking this question. And you cannot just look at keyword research data. You can't just look at SEO softwares. The most powerful thing that you can do for a client's brand is listen to their phone calls and read their form submissions and constantly show them what's going on with their website and make recommendations. I'll show you another example. So this is a different one, right? This is what's happening to this person's grandfather. Unfortunately, they passed away, but this is a person who wants to move a piano that doesn't want to damage the piano themselves. And so what great marketing copy that you can utilize to using your customer's own words. So another really cool thing that you can do inside of Zapier or just manually is you can take all of the contact form submissions or all the call transcripts from your customers' websites, put them into ChatGPT and generate ideas of content that you can create for the website that's going to put you ahead of the game when it comes to LLM SEO. Because when somebody eventually searches something along these lines, I want a moving company, I don't want to damage my own piano, this is very sentimental to me, you're going to have content specifically focused on that topic. So that is a really critical way of listening to the data that you're already getting from your customers so that you can create a better strategy long term, because these are keywords that your potential competitors are not going to look at. So before I was talking a little bit about the actual citations. And right here, as you can see on the Better Business Bureau, this business right now has 83 customer reviews. And we strategized this, right? This wasn't something that they just started doing naturally on their own. When we look at their competitor reports on their actual brand, you can see that on average they have 520% above market average when it comes to reviews. And if your customer or your business has more reviews on average than your marketplace, something you may want to consider is getting reviews in multiple places, specifically the citations that were mentioned when you ran your AI visibility report. And so if you're running that report and you're seeing their citations you have 0 reviews on, but they are the critical ones that you should be focusing your brand on, and you're above average in the Google search results, you may want to consider diversifying the reviews you're getting for the customer. And think about for a second how prepared you look going to a sales conversation, giving them this level of strategy, insight, and information. You look way more prepared than the person that's saying, put all of your eggs in one basket, just focus on Google reviews. You're already way ahead of market average, etc. Now, if this company had 245 reviews and they were just where the market average is, my answer would probably be a little bit different than that. But because they're already crushing it on Google, you may want to consider where else they can get reviews. And in this case, the Better Business Bureau, they're now leading in that area for reviews. So when the LLMs, when someone asks a question like, what is the best moving company in this area? The LLMs are going to look at all of these different places, especially the citations that were mentioned in the beginning. And this is critical. So you should run the you should run the ChatGPT visibility report often for the customer. I probably recommend it to do it once per month or even twice per week, depending on the intensity that you're running for the customer. And when you look at the keywords that were not mentioned, you can utilize these keyword phrases to try to get them to make more content for the website, make these talking conversations with the customer. And remember, guys, this is so critical. Just because you sold your idea once doesn't mean you don't have to sell your idea ever again. So anytime you meet with a customer, make sure that you have something to sell ongoing. And when I say sell, I don't really mean to be sleazy and be a salesperson. What I mean is they want to be sold. They want to be told what to do. They want to grow their businesses. They want to take your advice. They want to implement your recommendations. They don't want a marketing consultant or a marketing advisor who's just sitting back and chilling and guessing. That's not what they want. They want you to add a website piece of content that talks about moving a collection of vinyl records on their website so that they can rank for that and they can actually generate more awareness through ChatGPT visibility reports. So, next time I talk to this customer specifically, one thing I might talk about is all of the non-mentioned prompts. They might say they do 3 out of the 13 they weren't mentioned in, and that's okay. We now have the 3 pieces of content that we're going to add to their website. So over time, within a year, their website is showing up dramatically for the ChatGPT visibility reports, and I can get more nice text messages like the one I showed you of our client closing an $85,000 contract because somebody decided to search ChatGPT for an insulation contractor. So if I were to summarize everything that I talked about today, I'm going to close out the video with something really simple is, guys, if you're interested, start looking into LLM SEO. It is something that is changing our business, the way we're thinking about it. Just look at the data. In 2023, there were barely anybody searching for AI SEO services. Now there's above 567 people searching it on a monthly basis, according to Ahrefs. And so these are people looking for digital marketing services. So everybody is wondering about AI SEO. Don't wait. Take the time to understand how to optimize for AEO and get started today. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.